Good morning. My one single good morning doesn't match about 200 of you here. Let me give a 1, 2, 3. The people in the first floor should hear the good morning and come down running. 1, 2, 3. Good morning. See, some of them I had extra breakfast on the right side. The left side is not matching. Let's go with a one more, 1, 2, 3, and sisters should match. I know you are going to get good at the slanging match once you get married. Start practicing now. 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. Supposed to be a cool generation, maybe in a cool room. Let me start one joke, start sharing a joke which used to be a favorite of Charji Maharaj also. Once there was a youth like you, went into the forest and roaming around, and he went very deep into the forest, and then he found a very small glass jar. And in the glass jar, he happened to find one toad. Call it a frog, whatever you want. The frog kept looking at him and it started talking, and he was really shocked. And then he opened the bottle's top and then asked, what do you want? Said, I have been a princess, I have been cursed. I am sitting inside this glass for almost 1,000 years. Just do me a favor. Take me in your hands, give me a kiss, I'll become a princess, marry you, and all the wealth will be yours. So the boy, like one of our boys, thought for a long time, and he put the toad back in the bottle, and the toad started shouting, what are you doing? He said, if I'm going to get married to you, I know what the rest of the life is going to be. But a talking toad is cool business. I know how to make money with a talking toad. So he put it in his pocket and took there. So something like that. How many of you would prefer to kiss the toad and get married, or actually take the toad in your pocket? You don't want to tell the truth. Okay. There's a long time ago, I remember way back in the middle of the 90s in Manapakam, Charji Maharaj was seated outside, and there are a lot of youth. The then youth, I was also one of them. Believe me. And then somebody asked, Master, how do we get to be useful to the mission? He just looked and said, see, first, let me tell you something. Become useful to yourself. Once you are useful to yourself, then that vibration that you're able to create tends to move on, and then it tends to create an impact on others. So 2 days back when I was with Daji, he was just asking, why don't you give a talk to the youth? So the first thought that came to my mind or the heart was, how can we be useful to ourselves first, and then to our family, and then to the society nearby? And through that process, how do we become people who inspire others? So I have about 5 or 6 points purely based out of my coaching and consulting and leadership experience that I have. I coach a lot of CEOs, top-level industries, students, of course a lot of youth in the mission. Maybe in the last 40 years I would have touched closely till now about 4 to 5 million youth in my life, directly, indirectly, in so many ways. So let me share a few inputs. Let me see what he can do with this. What is the biggest difference between us and the species in this world? Intellectual. Really? Seriously? Okay, we are supposed to be species with the ability to think. Any of you would have heard Chariji's talk of 24 July 2002, his 75th birth anniversary, Ode Separe. He says, dare to think. Your ability to think is what makes you different. But there is also one quotation from Einstein which is very interesting and intriguing. He says, if a man thinks once a year, it's a great achievement. Very intriguing thought. If a man, includes you also, if a man thinks once a year, what does he mean? We read in behavioral science that in a day we get 60 to 80,000 thoughts. And here there is one famous scientist of the century says that if you think once a year, it's a great achievement. So what is the difference? If you go back to the book by James Williams, considered to be the father of philosophy, he wrote a book towards the end of the 19th century, where he just beautifully explains the definition of what thinking is not. And from that, maybe we can collate and then see what sense it makes to us. In that book, James Williams writes, thinking is many times confused with reminiscing and contemplating. And then he goes on to explain. Reminiscing means we are looking at what happened in our life. What did we do? Why this happened? Why that happened? We are always in a sort of a rewind mode. We all have only two modes. We don't have the third mode, which is very essential. The first mode, like the old cassette record player, is like the rewind button. We keep licking our wounds. Oh, this girl I proposed, she said no. That boy I said, he didn't even look at me. All these things happen in this age. As you go along, it becomes to job, to family, and then to your children, to your grandchildren, and all that. The other button is the forward button. We are always looking what will happen to us in the future. That future could be 1 minute from now, 1 year from now, 10 years from now, I don't know. But very rarely we do the play button. The play button is when you actually live the moment. Right now you may be thinking, when is the session going to end? What am I going to pick up from this session? What is it they are going to serve for the tea break? Things like that. Or you may be thinking, last 2 days was so boring, or it was so great, or I did this, I did that, but you are not really using what is the most essential aspect of what we are capable of. That is what is the most important difference between us and others. Our ability to discriminate. Daji gave a talk here in one of the Bandaras 4 years back where he explains beautifully what it means to discriminate. He says, people confuse at a very low level discrimination to be with ability to choose between dualities, good and bad, night and day, right and wrong, boy and girl. It's all about dvantas or dualities. That is the lowest form of discrimination, is what he said. There in that talk, he gave a beautiful example. The true discriminative ability, which is rarely used, he quoted Lalaji Maharaj also in the talk, he said is your ability to decide what the effect is going to be in your life and causate it. If you really think through, what does it really mean? What is typically an effect? It is a result of some efforts you're going to put in. I want this to happen in my life. I want a job with about a fat paycheck of 1.5 crores a year. Things like that. The IIM grads who get placed in Google, 1.5 crore startup, salary. You would have seen that interview 2 weeks back. To do that effect, what will cause that effect? Causate. What will cause that effect? Which means the true ability of a human being is your ability to decide what the future effect in a life is going to be. It can be one effect, can be multiple effects, can be short term, can be medium term, can be long term. In normal parlance in corporate life, we call them as goals. If you take Maxim 3, Babaji Maharaj says, fix your goal as the highest. How many of us really have goals in our life? Let me throw some stat at you. They did a survey of Fortune 100 companies, of top 500 companies in the world. And these companies, these people are supposed to be extremely successful in their career. And then they picked up a sample of about 100 to 200,000 people, and then they did a random survey to find out 98% of the people who were surveyed did not have a written down goal about what they want to achieve in their life, whether it's personal, professional, social, or spiritual. 2% of the people not only had goals, they also had very clear plans in terms of how they want to achieve that goal. And finally, they found out in that survey, these 2% of the people were the CEOs or the MDs or the owners. The rest are the Aam Admis who are working with the people, because we all live the life like a vestibule syndrome. If you have been to anybody from Mumbai here, how many of you have been to Mumbai? The local trains. You have to do nothing, just stand near the station, they'll put you in the coach, and in 2-3 stations later you'll be out of the coach with or without your purse. Start with. He kept on saying, write what you want to achieve. I used to be good in writing diary, even now I write diaries. My wife used to make fun that we need 3-4 bureaus just to keep diary till 2010. Then I moved to digital format. Saved a lot of space. So he used to say that you need to write a goal, because without that doesn't make any sense at all. It took me about 4-5 months. After I met Charji Maharaj for the first time in the ashram in July 93, something sparked in me, and then I wrote a goal. Whatever that goal is between me and my Guru. But after that, my sadhana completely changed. And that goal, please bear in mind, has changed hundreds of times after that. We cannot have one fixated goal in Sahaj Math because Charji Maharaj and Daji both have said the goals keep changing as you evolve. As your consciousness evolves, the goal will change. The more you are able to see, when I am standing in the first floor, I see a different space outside. Whereas when I stand in the 100th floor, I see a different world and I know what I can achieve. My horizon expands, my consciousness expands. The goal will change, but it is important that you need to have a goal first. And for this is the first point that I wanted to share, what I would call as a PPQ. There was a Harvard survey from where I will take it and then arrive at this PPQ. In this Harvard survey, which was done over a period of 35 years, between the beginning of 1960s till the middle of 95, they took people with extreme success in life as the objects of observation, and they did a research on them. They also took the also-rans in the world. For them, the people who have been extremely successful are either in the material life or in the spiritual life or in the scientific life or in sports life or whatever. They took the cream, as they say, the top 1 percentile, 1%. And then they did a research, 35 years of research, spanning over 80 countries, covering more than 800,000, I would say, subjects. At the end, they came out with the paper. You can Google it. Maybe you'll find it somewhere in 97, 98. It was uploaded onto the web. It's a 600, 700-page survey. But the sum of it is something very interesting. It has only 2 points finally, at least that I want to share with you. The first thing that they found out with the people who have been extremely successful in their life is that consciousness or their knowledge was continuously expanding. It was continuously expanding. Whereas they found out that the other people are like holding an iPhone 16 in your hand, but with an iPhone 1 OS loaded. Their consciousness is still at the age of 3 or 4, practically speaking. I am not here comparing with the bookish knowledge that we acquire through schools. Please bear in mind. You may come back and say, I've done an MBA. Doesn't it count? That is more or less what we call as rote knowledge or memory knowledge. Somebody has created a syllabus, you have picked it up, you have memorized it, you have put it into your exam papers, got marks, and you have gone out with a degree to take a job. Whereas these people's consciousness kept expanding and expanding, continues to expand. That's not the point. The second reference that they infer from this to share, so what really makes them different from us? Let me give you an example. If an apple falls on a head, what will you do? Salah, who did it? Who threw it from above? The same apple fell on the head of Newton, and he went on to ask questions to find actually the law of gravity. Not that gravity did not exist before. He postulated it. This is the difference between the people they observed over a period of 35 years, is that they ask powerful questions. This now ties back to the quotation by Albert Einstein. People, if they think once a year, it's a great achievement. Let me ask you one question. When did you ever ask an original question in your life? If you have asked a question, please share that with me either now or toward the end of the session. One original question that has never been asked by anyone before. That's what these people asked. If you have, please write it down. I see one hand going up. Let me check it out, whether it's an innovative question or a creative question. There's a big difference between the two. Whereas many of us go through the life asking questions, but we ask the mundane, repetitive questions. What is there for lunch today? Where are we going out? What movie are we watching? Are we meeting Daji today or not? Are we taking a sitting? Let me throw 3-4 standard questions that have been asked to very big philosophers and nobody has been able to answer. If you Google, you will find 100 top questions which haven't yet found answers. One question Charji Maharaj asked us. If you have an answer, go ahead and explain later, but just note down the question. He said, when you stand in front of a mirror, when your left and right are mirrored this way, why is it the top and bottom don't get mirrored? This is one question he asked. He used to ask such questions many times in close quarters. Of course, there are answers to this in a logical way, but yet these are questions. The second question, famous question that children ask us many times, and by the age of 2, 3, we shut them off, and this is the product of all those shutting off. What is water? If you can answer, write it down. If you are going to say H2O or it quenches thirst, It is either a chemical formula or the utilization of what water can do. What is fire? What is nature? What is God? Questions like this, which apparently haven't ever been found answers till now, are the kind of questions these people asked which made them that 1%. So if there is one question that I can ask myself every day, which will make my life better, what could it be? Write down, at the end of it, I'll share some answer. Let's see whether we can exchange notes and improve through the process. If you're able to ask just one question, even if it is the repetitive question, that can change, expand your consciousness on an ongoing basis. This is point number one I wanted to share, which I call as PPQ, or power of pertinent questions. The second question, the second point what I wanted to share is based on a question I'm going to ask you. Take a sheet of paper, just write the answer to this question. Direction or speed, which is more important? Don't need to answer, just write down. Direction or speed, which is more important? Technically, you may be able to answer because this has been answered many times by many of our masters, many of well-renowned philosophers and speakers. So the answer might be easy because it's a borrowed answer. You will say that direction is more important. For example, you're driving from Hyderabad to Bangalore by road. After 1 hour of clipping at 150 kilometers per hour, and your car is in, say, Vizag, what will you do? You need to stop, take a U-turn and go back. Which means you have compromised direction for speed. But if you are traveling at even 70 kilometers an hour, and if you are on the right track from Hyderabad to Bangalore by road, the person who took the wrong road and traveled faster would have been in the opposite direction, right? The direction again here is something that translates into what we call as a goal. I am again asking a question. Write down the answer, you don't need to share right now. What's your goal? Write it down. The same thing our department is, our mission is also hitting, which is happening up on top. Me and Chinuba are exchanging notes on OKRs and all that. Finally, this is something that we are also waking up to as an organization. What is our direction? All along we have been running helter-skelter. Many times people who are extremely busy were considered more important than people who had a purpose or a direction. So if you have a direction, then the speed is something that we can calibrate. Do you have a direction in your life? I'm not saying you need to have direction spiritually only. But of course, Charji Maharaj once said, if your goal is to climb Mount Everest and reach the 29,000 feet, which is the highest spiritual goal possible, which is, say, become one with a master or with a God or realizing yourself, whatever be it, 13 point, Bhuma, whatever. But in the process of crossing the first point or second point, he said in the 500 feet in Everest, who knows, you might find emeralds and rubies and diamonds and all the wealth. And as he crosses, you'll find that the goal, which is much farther and higher, is more purposeful to me. But no harm in setting your goal for materialistic goals at this age specifically. You need to get a good material life, you need to earn money, you need to settle well, and you need to move on. Because today, whether you like it or not, the world listens to successful people. One Charji Maharaj beautifully said, if a poor man is going to say money doesn't make sense, arey yaar, you haven't earned any money, get out of the way. But if a rich man, billionaire, Bill Gates or Mukesh Ambani comes and says money doesn't make much, oh wow. We all say, lovely. He must have a lot of money to know that money doesn't make sense, right? So it is something like that. So the second point I wanted to ask you, the first point I wanted to ask you is your ability to ask just one question a day that you never asked before. Even if it's a repetitive question, I have an answer for that which I'll give at the end in case you don't crack it. The second point what I wanted to share is your direction clear before calibrating the speed? The third point I wanted to share with you, there is something called as a 40% club in the world. How many of you are members of that? So you had asked, what is 40% club? 40% club. Okay, whenever I talk to volunteers, there is one thing I always share with them. This is my personal motto. There is a difference between what I can do and what I should do. How many of you know the difference? What I can do, what I should do. It is said that about 95% of the people, including volunteers, functionaries, all of us included, belong to that club of what we call as 40%ers. 40%ers are people who are happy they made a beginning, they covered some ground. 40% typically the pass mark in schools. I have passed here, I have moved on to 10th standard, I have moved to board, I have cleared exam, I got a degree. Nobody is going to ask you how much you scored. I got a degree, fine, good. 40% club, just pass. Many of our efforts, even in our life, does not bear fruit because of this reason. If you have 100 feet well into which you fall, and if you had to climb out of that well, how much height you should have crossed? Surely not 100 feet. At 100 feet, you still fall back. Because many people say immediately 100 feet. It has to be at least half a foot, 1 foot above that. So really the challenge is, we all settle for less, even in our personal life. There was a beautiful survey I read 40 years back, a behavioral survey which studied all living people for a very, very long time. And this survey very beautifully shared saying that including people like Einstein have hardly used 5% of what their capacity is during their lifetime. With that 5%, Einstein cracked the theory of relativity, or any of those people whom you see. Compared to that, how much we would have used? What if I asked you, you had 1,000 crore deposit in your name, but you never knew it, and you were taking a begging bowl and asking for food on the streets on a day-to-day basis. Should I laugh at you or should I cry at you? Or do both? Each and every one of us is something like this. We have thousands and thousands crore worth of what we call as capability, but in that process of unfolding, we are so happy with the little tidbits we get in our life. Like Babaji Maharaj used to say, I throw breadcrumbs, people are happy and go. Breadcrumbs he meant for liberation. I just throw breadcrumbs, they're happy. Oh, I am liberated. Because religion has taught you liberation is so difficult. And then you're happy with something like liberation, finding that there is something much, much longer. If you had read spiritual anatomy, you'll know that life hardly begins at the point of liberation. There's a much, much longer journey to cover. Are you a 40%er or are you a person who is a 100%er? If you're a 40%er in life, look back at your life. How many opportunities you missed? How many times you gave up in your life, whether it's personal life, whether it is your life as a youth in the mission, whether it's your life as a preceptor, the work that you can actually achieve. Babaji Maharaj has repeatedly shared that there is no difference between me and a preceptor I make. The only difference is he holds a post. Technically speaking, once I asked Daji, what does it really mean? Which means that you can do anything, nothing will go wrong. He said, as a preceptor, you can do anything and everything. And Charji Maharaj gave a beautiful disclaimer to this. He said, as a preceptor, our system has complete circuit breakers inbuilt all the way. You cannot do anything wrong, except physically or abusing your contact to make money. Those kind of character issues I'm not talking. Spiritually, there's nothing that really you can do wrong. Even if you do wrong, once I gave a sitting in a specific way, I asked Daji, is it right? He said, kya hoga? Experiment. If it fails, anyway it fails. You have learned one more way how not to do a thing. Like that famous Edison experiment of 1,000 ways of not making a bulb. That's what the famous statement of Edison is, right? I learned how not to make bulb 1,000 ways before I actually made the bulb. So are you a 40% clubber who does only what he can, or you do what he should? When do we do what we should? When we have a goal and the goal gets obsessed with us. There's no point in we getting obsessed with the goal. The goal has to get obsessed with us. In the sense, imagine if Master gets obsessed with you saying that this is the person I want to really use for doing the mission work in this city or in this town or in this zone or in this state, then the goal is obsessed with you. To such an extent that you and the goal, there is no difference. If you look at his talk, goal paradox, you'll get a lot of answers on this. So the third point I covered is about the difference between doing what he can and doing what he should. Let me share one more interesting... Slowly, I'm running out of time. You want me to go much slower? Okay. Rajdhani. Goods train is okay. Can I borrow some extra time, Nitin? They are not there. Okay, fine. I guess I am allowed. Okay, the fourth point. We'll play it back later slowly in 0.5x speed and watch the video again. That's why I asked them to record it. Many of us want to lose weight. Many of us want to study. Many of us want to make money. Many of us want to improve in our spiritual life. The biggest question that comes is, are you interested or are you committed? What is the difference? Let's say that I want to reduce my weight by 5 kilos from whatever it is. My gym trainer gives me a schedule for 6 months. Every day next 6 months, this is a schedule. This is your workout. This is what you need to do. I turn up on day 1, I turn up on day 30, I turn up on day 90. What will happen? Nothing is likely to happen. He gets the money, prepaid. This is what we call as interest. When I'm interested in something, I do it when it's convenient. Today I can't wake up at 5 o'clock. Yesterday I watched a OTT movie up to 1. Tomorrow I'll catch up. That's interest in your practice. I had to go in the morning to play. When these IPL kids make money, you read their stories. How much they have traveled, 2 hours both ways for the practice pitches, in Mumbai and other places. That is what we call as commitment. Commitment is when you will do whatever it takes to reach the goal. Whatever be that goal. That's your personal life. I don't want to ask what your goal is. Whether it's a goal related as a volunteer of the mission, it's a goal related to your personal life, material life, the wealth that you want to make, the fame you want to build, whatever be it. If you are committed to the goal, you will not need an alarm clock. I always used to tell in all my corporate executive training programs, if somebody has to remind you to do something, take it as a slap on your face. Somebody has to remind you, oh, you should have done this. It's a slap on your face because I am not committed to that goal. I told someone I'll do something. If I'm not doing, they have to remind me, which means we always tell people, I'll do a small exercise towards the end to communicate this point. You will understand this easily. If I'm really committed to the goal, nobody needs to watch you. Let me give the story of the Statue of Liberty. It was made when flights were still not, Wright brothers were not even born. The Statue of Liberty was made in France and transported and planted in US, right? When this statue was being made, towards the end, the French sculptor was taking extra time to give the finishing touches. So the people said, the ship is waiting, we have to ship, it's getting late. He said, no. Then they went and found out, inside the crown of the Statue of Liberty, there is a small dot which is not coming out properly. And this guy was actually making it right. Somebody said, this is about 150 feet tall, 150 feet, something like that. Once it stands up, who's going to see? He said, I know it. How can I compromise? This came as a video in one of the Discovery channels much, much later. They took this story and then they took a helicopter. And then they zoomed in and then showed, this is the point he was working for last 3-4 days to touch up. Because now we can actually see. Had he thought nobody will watch, later the flights came, the helicopters came, somebody would have said that this French sculptor made a mistake. That commitment is between me and my goal, me and my master, me and my whatever it is. So nobody needs to tell me that, are you interested or are you committed? If you're not committed, please tell upfront, I'm sorry, it's not working out. I'm sorry, this goal is not for me. I can't do it. It's better to tell upfront, say no, than sort of say yes and then tag along and then waste your time. That is the fourth point. The fifth point comes from one single quotation that I read long ago. It's by a very famous author called Stephen Covey, the person who wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He wrote a book called 8th Habit. There he gives a beautiful one-liner. He says, knowing and not doing as good as not knowing at all. Knowing and not doing. Last 2 days, you would have been pumped up with so much of information, inputs, not only in the last 2 days, throughout your life. But what is the point in information deluge in your brain? In a day, it is said we come through about 90,000 bits of information which passes through our brain. And we hardly capture 3 or 4 which we find interesting. The rest just goes off. You take a WhatsApp forward, you see a channel, you talk to someone, some information is coming at you. In a day, it's about 90,000 bits of information that you are processing and skipping almost everything but about 5 or 6. But even these 5 or 6, does it make any sense to you? Let me close it with one personal example I share in all the forums, specifically leadership forums, youth forums and all that. I always ask this question: what does learning mean to you? Write down an answer. What does learning mean to you? What is learning? Let me connect the dots, give a short break for you to ask questions. 30 minutes was a slot and 10 to 15 minutes was for the Q&A. If you have written down, let me give a different spin altogether. Write it down. If it makes sense to you, start practicing. If you have a logical question, ask me. Let's see what it makes. What is not a habit you have not learnt in your life? You are nothing but, did you get that right? What is not a habit you have not learnt? Go through right from your LKG days, from the age of 2.5, 3, to what you are today, 25, 30, 35.
Okay, repeat that, please.
What you have not converted as a habit, you have not learnt. Which means, if you really look at your life, you have 24 hours ahead of you every day, right? From the time you get up in the morning till you go to the bed in the night, plus the sleeping hours, totally 24 hours. 6 to 7 hours goes towards sleeping, plus or minus. The rest 16 to 17 hours is nothing but your habits that consume your time. If you're really serious about what you have learned in your life, do this exercise today, tomorrow, whenever you get time. Take a sheet of paper. Write down time chunks, as I call. I wake up at 5, okay, 4:35, 6, whatever time frame. Write every half an hour, what do I do? Just write. Take it as a first step of the exercise. What do I do every half an hour? If you do nothing, please feel free to write. You are not going to share this with me, nor share this with anyone. It is for you to introspect and see how we can improve. Once you write this, on the left, all that I do during the day, meditate, sit with my friends, go to work. In work, every half an hour, write down what you do. Once this is done, do not go to the right side till you finish the left, but I'm sharing the right side ahead so that you don't need to come back later to me. On the right side, create another column. Just write what goal of your life has it helped to achieve, what you wrote on the left. Just now look at the left column. Don't justify it. Please be blunt. Be extremely critical of yourself because it is your life. Just stop. Sorry? Write on the right, just write what goal in my life has this activity helped me to achieve. Goal achieved, put it as a column. Just say that, okay, I did this activity between 9:30 and 10, I did this activity. On the right, just write what goal did it help me to achieve. Now look back and you will find it surprising that 80 to 85% of the time that you spend in a day, this is a research-based data I'm sharing with you, 80 to 85% of the time is consumed by habits which take you nowhere. And all that they're currently doing are almost useless because all along you never had a goal, or maybe you had a goal, you didn't know how to manage your time, or you had a goal but your habits were eating up your time. When you do this exercise, which is the culmination of what I wanted to share, you will find it linking back to the first one, PPQ. All along I have done in the last 30 minutes is to ask you nothing but questions. Introspective questions, perspective questions to make you look at yourself. I'll pause it here right now, give another 10 minutes or so for question answers. Or if any of you are interested, I'll do one small exercise. Any volunteer wants to come forward, left or right? I'm not going to eat you up. Please come up. All of you can see here, no? Stand here. What is this in my hand? I'm not asking you to take. I only asked what. I'm going to tell her something. Please pay attention to the words, what I'm sharing. Processes that happens. She'll do the most obvious. Let's see. Try to take the pen from my hand. Please put it back. I told you, try to take the pen from my hand. Try to take the pen from my hand. Try to take the pen from my hand. I said, try. You're not taking it. Try to take the pen. Now good. Why you're not taking it?
I tried in the beginning.
Let me share one important point how your subconscious mind works. This is something, the words of Yoda. Charji Maharaj used to like. Charji Maharaj always used to say Yoda reminds him of Babaji Maharaj. Have you ever seen in Manapaka in front of his cottage, there will be a small Yoda statue? Whenever he comes back from satsang, he'll salute saying, he used to talk to the statue as if it was Babaji Maharaj. He said that Yoda had so much of wisdom. The famous quotation of Yoda, there is no trying, only doing. Let me explain it in 2 minutes. When somebody asks you something, say somebody comes to your home and gives you a wedding invitation, and you say, I will try to come. What are you communicating? There's a chance I may not come. So what are the options in front of you? When someone in front of you, Ramesh or Nitin or Chinubai, Lalita, when ask you to do something, if you say try to do, I will try to do, please take it for granted you are not going to do. There are 3 options in front of us every second of our life when opportunities come in front of us. The first option is, I can say, I will do by this time frame. The second option is, sorry, my current priorities do not give me the scope for this work. Be very clear. Instead of giving a roundabout answer and making them unhappy later, it's better to say, I'm sorry. Don't make it a standard habit. I'm sorry, I can't do. Sorry, I can't. Don't do that. Sorry, it doesn't fit into my goal. I don't have the priority. The third option, maybe the person is giving you a work which will make you far better in your life than what you are today. So what is the best option? Third option. Please give me an hour's time. Please give me a day's time. I'll get back. Don't use it as an excuse. Please get back. Give me about an hour's time. Let me re-look at my options. I'll come back. There are 3 options in life. Never use this word because there are leadership words like this, traps like this you shouldn't use. But when someone asks you something, in my vocabulary the word try doesn't exist. I don't use. Anyone who knows me well, I'll say I will do, I won't do, or let me get back. There are only 3 options. Like there are several other words, I'll come to that later. Now I throw it open, another 7 minutes we have. Question answers. Somebody raised the hand saying they have thought creatively in their life. Can I know what that question is? You did, right? Please ask. Yeah, good. Come here. All right. Do you have, does this work? Can you just pass it on, please? Is it a question that you wrote or somebody? I just Googled it.
So I was thinking, right at the beginning of the satsang, there is a story of a saint and a beggar, in which God appears in front of saint and he asks how many birds I need to get liberated, and God answers 3. And then the beggar asks, okay, let me also ask, and he says, okay, the number of leaves on this tree, that is the number of birds you need to get liberated. And he was happy and he was instantly liberated. So I was just thinking, that's a bit unfair. I was thinking, if it was not for the saint who was alongside beggar, beggar wouldn't have even the vision of God. Forget about asking this question or something. And then there is one more saying by Babuji. There's a couplet. जब खुदा की नज़र पड़ी जो मतलब सिनर्स थे, तो जो सिनर्स नहीं थे वो खफीफ हो गए, मतलब नाराज़ हो गए कि खुदा की नज़र उन पे पड़ गई जिन्होंने गुनाहगारों से बोला था। तो बोला यार शायद गुनाहगारों पे तभी नज़र पड़ी जब जो गुनाहगार नहीं थे शायद वो भी साथ थे। तो थोड़ा सा मुझे इनजस्टिस लगा। फिर मैंने सोचा यार मैं क्यों इंडिविजुअली, ये थोड़ा सत्संग में रिजॉल्व होता रहा क्वेश्चन। So this resolved during satsang, and then I said from where this question is coming. This question is coming because I see myself as separate from the other person, and that is against the law of oneness, that you and I are one. So that is how it resolved at the end.
Thank you. Is it on? Just check. Quickly, 2 questions we can take. I think we have 3 more minutes. Yeah, there are 2 hands which have been raised here. Behind you. Yeah. Take the mic and ask.
So I asked a question. So it is related to my profession. So I'm a pathologist. I was working initially in Lilavati Hospital, Mumbai. So when I got opportunity in a CME to present something, and suddenly my boss said, something I saw in the neutrophils, so some blue colored granules. So I asked him, so what is this? So he said, these are specific granules. These are called as a death crystals. So once we see those, patient might die in 12 to 72 hours. I said, okay. So I started collecting some of the slides, and I saw there are no publications or something. And then suddenly that call comes for CME. Then he said, you have to go and just see what you can do. I said, I have these and there is no publication, anything. I said, let's compile everything. And then when I compiled 7-8 cases with a different cause of deaths and other thing, something very amazing data has come up with that analyzer which was not studied before. I think this ability to think little beyond our limits, I think it's all because of our meditation and all those things. That is actually practically I experienced it. Then the same topic, it was presented in the CME, and but the uniformity of data was there in those cases. And then I again tried to come back and try to see at what biochemical parameters it is causing and all, but that study didn't go much. But something I tried to ask.
Okay, I guess you just want to share some inputs. Thank you. One more last question. Yeah. Behind. We can meet. I'm here till 6th of Mayank from the back wants to ask a question, the podcaster. Do you have a stretch on this, Nitin, for another few more minutes, or am I to? Nitin is still missing in action. I can take it a bit more. We got 2-3 hands go up. If I stop right now, I stop. My time ends here. I can? When should I end? Okay. She wants me to end now. Fine. No, it's okay. No. I'm not putting it on you. Don't worry. I'm only rephrasing what he said. Please go ahead. After that, I'll just let that boy from the back ask the question. Mayank.
Yes, sir. So my 2 questions are, first of all, you talked about a child, right? He has so many questions, and those are, we don't answer them and we tell them not to ask questions. And sometimes we do it to ourselves. So, if I have a question, maybe I'm not worthy enough to do that. Maybe I don't have, some resources enough to complete that task or think about it. So have you ever faced such situations and how you overcame them?
Let me give a different answer. All the questions, just pass the mic to the back to save time. All the questions normally I ask, we all have this youthful exuberance that the questions are to be asked to the world. We are always there, asking, why did you do that? Why did you do that? Why not this? Why not that? Charji Maharaj long ago said, whatever questions you have, direct it inward. Ask yourself. And once, I remember, I brought a new seeker to him, and this seeker was coming from a religious background, very staunch believer, and he was asking, I understand the power of meditation, but I have a lot of unanswered questions in my life. I don't want to reach God, but can I use meditation as a tool to find answers to my questions? I thought Charji going to give me a rundown. He said, no, please go ahead. This tool is meant for you to look within to find whatever answers you want. And then he became a very good abhyasi. He was there for quite some time, subsequently left. But he used to say, every day I used to sit with a question and I used to get astounding answers from within. And that's the only thing I do. I keep asking questions only to myself. I don't push others with my questions. Though my wife is there, I will take a chance. Yeah. Mayank?
You talked about the ability to discriminate, and you said that it's the ability to decide the effect in future. But past plays a very important part in our life, and sometimes we reflect on our past. So just wanted to ask, what is the best way to reflect on our past so that we don't feel bad about it, one thing, and we learn from it so that we can make the, this statement true, ability to decide the effect in future. How to look at the past.
I'll share it purely from a personal perspective. People who know me well, for me, past is a dead real estate to visit. Whatever I learned from the past is already imbibed in my system. So I don't need to revisit a specific memory in the past to know what I will do in the future. Because if I have picked up something as an input from the past, how does something become a habit? First, I pick up knowledge. This knowledge, I put it into practice. By putting it into repetitive practice, it now becomes part of my subconscious memory system, what you call a second nature or memory recall. It is just there. By this time, why do I have to revisit my past to know what I would do for the future? It's already there in my response system. So for me, any given situation, if I have to respond, I just look at my repository of my standard responses for the given situation. If it does not fit the bill, the given situation needs a better effect and hence a better causation. I take a bit of a time, think through. One thing I have personally followed, Mayank, in my life is I take a lot of time to decide. I don't decide just like that anything. Very, very rarely I have decided. Whatever I decide, once I take a decision, it is well thought through, whether it's 1 day, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We all still make spur of the moment mistakes. I also make, I continue to make, but I minimize them. What I do is to check how my current repository can be helpful to handle a future situation, which is the effect, which I can causate today. And if that cause is not good enough, I recausate it and see how I can develop a better response system to reach that. I guess it answers your question. With this, I hand thanks a lot to Nitin, Ramesh, Chinubai, Liltaben, all the back-end team. Now, of course, a big round of applause for sitting through this session to yourself. And one big round of applause to the speaker. This is normally a sign that you have to stop. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I mean, this was such a wonderful session, not just inspirational, but